Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elanna if you are new to my channel, and I sound a little bit nasally because I have a cold. So good, the glory of having a little child that picks up everything at playgroups I now get, so please ignore my little nasally voice. This video is extremely overdue, like 4 years overdue. You guys constantly have been asking me since I moved countries from Canada to Northern Ireland, my experience, advice, tips, what visas I'm on, money, this, that. So finally, 4 years later, I went on my notepad and literally wrote everything to the best of my capability of remembering what I needed, what I had to do, the experience, and some advice for other people that are wanting to move countries. So if that's something that interests you or you've always wanted to know, then keep on watching. Let's rewind 4 years. So the reason I'm in another country to begin with is because, well, my now husband, but back then, a boyfriend, a boy. Isn't it always to do with love? No, but long story short, Patty and I met in Canada at a camp that we used to work at for a couple of years, but I decided I wanted to go traveling and try out new places. So when I came to Northern Ireland, because I knew a lot of people here from that camp that we worked at, even though we weren't dating, we were just friends, we reconnected because I was actually quite close with his older sister, and it just like kind of spurred everything. We were on the same life, track and everything, and I was like, you know what? I have a job I can kind of do wherever, and he was starting like a very permanent good job in September of that year. So I was like, look, I've always wanted to move countries. There's a lot of people here, so there's like a community already for me. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna move over in September. Let's do it. So first off, for long distance relationships, don't do long distance if you don't have to. You need a plan. You need a plan with long distance relationships, or else why don't you just date someone that's close, not far away? So we were 4 months long distance because he was actually in New Zealand playing rugby, and I was in Canada just tying up some other jobs and then saving to basically move countries. So what I needed to do and have to move countries. So at the time, I'm now 28, so I was 24 years old moving over, just 24, because I moved over September 21st and I turned 24 on August 21st. So I made a massive mistake in my first visa. The first visa I applied for, well, the visa I ended up getting, was, I believe it's called the Tier 5 Youth Mobility Visa. So it's kind of like a travel visa that you can get in most countries up until you're 30. It's a 2-year visa. It's about 1,000 Canadian dollars. I applied for it, did all my applications. I think you need like $3,000 in your bank account. You need obviously $1,000 to pay for the visa. It was pretty basic. Like I remember I did it on my own and it was totally fine for I was 23 at the time, and it was pretty, straightforward with your questions and answers. You probably needed a couple letters from people, but it was really easy. Although, I also booked a trip to Northern Ireland in August, and it was kind of like a birthday trip before I was formally moving over. I was also kind of bringing some of my clothes and stuff like that over in that August trip, so I didn't have to do it all in one big trip. I also didn't own my own house or apartment. I was living at home, so it really was just clothes and some makeup and stuff like that. So I didn't move my full household, if that makes sense, so it was a lot easier. Anyways, so go to the offices to finally, send it off. They have to take your picture, your fingerprints, all that stuff, because you get a little card. But they were like, oh, we need to take your passport. It takes up to 4 weeks. You can get it expedited in a week if you want. And then, you'll get your answer. And I was like, oh, you need it today? I leave in a week for Northern Ireland. And they're like, well, either you're applying for this visa today or you're not going to Northern Ireland. And I was like, right, okay. Well, I already booked my trip. And I was like, flip. So I did the mistake where make sure you don't have any trips booked in the timing that you're applying for that visa, because I had to reapply for that visa. So I paid $2,000 for a $1,000 visa, and it's such a complex, like, I don't know if this is in every country, but you could like apply for a refund because it was like an honest mistake, and it was like they said I could apply for a refund, and the amount of calls you had to do, no one knew who you should talk to. Like, it was so confusing that like I never got my money back. So I paid $2,000 for this stinking youth mobility tier 5 travel visa. Whatever, I'm here. I'm over it. Clearly not. Anyway, so I came over that September. It was all good. You can leave the country, you can come back and forth. It's great. Also, I want to clarify, because I think some people don't know, and I was totally the same. I live in the north of Ireland. So Ireland itself, the whole island, is an island. It's actually not attached to anything else. I thought it was like attached to, you know, England and Scotland, all that. No, it's an island. And the north of it, where I live, is actually a part of the UK, where the south is Europe. So it's technically, well, not technically, it is 2 different countries. So when I state Northern Ireland, it's because it's not Ireland, because Ireland is EU and Northern Ireland is UK. We have different currencies. It's different countries, even though we're all the same island. It's confusing, but just, you know, I'm a part of Great Britain, so that's Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England. That's the UK. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm a Canadian girl applying to the UK, so this is like my experience. Also want to clarify, this is very personal. Everyone's gonna have a different story with their application depending on what country you're from, what country you're applying to. The year, like this was 4 years ago. I don't know if anything has changed. This is very personal to my story and obviously the circumstances. So please take that with a grain of salt. Everyone is going to have a different story. It's depending on if you're moving on your own, like just because you want to go explore and try something else. If you're moving for love, like I did. If you're moving with friends, a family, like it's very circumstantial. So just, yeah, keep that in mind. Moved over, that's great. We got engaged in January and married the following year. So a year after I moved over, we were married. I was still on my travel visa. Just because you get married, I don't need to apply for that marriage visa until basically my travel visa is up. So I had another year on my travel visa, so we used it. Once that year, second year, was coming to an end, we didn't obviously wait till it ended or else I would have been deported, but you know, about 4 or 5 months until it ended, because it's a 2-year visa, we started looking at the next step on keeping me in the country. I think a lot of people think if you marry someone, you automatically can just stay in the country, and it doesn't work like that. Well, it didn't for us. Like, you have to apply for a marriage visa, and it's a 2-year visa. Also, I'm going to clarify, I can't apply for permanent residency like just because I'm married and my husband is from here. You have to be in the UK for 5 years before you can apply for permanent residency. So you need to sort out visas until you're at that 5-year, situation until you can even apply. So I'm not even at 5 years yet. So I don't have permanent residency. I'm still on a marriage visa. We're 2 years into me living here, and we're now applying for a marriage visa because we are married. It was actually not too bad, again, because Canada is a part of the UK's Commonwealth. I don't know the whole thing there, but I know some friends who are American that moved over here. They had a different process than I did. So again, keep that in mind. You're gonna have different applications from wherever you're from, but I think it was maybe a little bit easier because Canada is associated with the UK and the Commonwealth and all that. So the visa at the time, this was 2 years ago, was around £1,800. I think the visa itself was £1,000, and it was like a surcharge. The NHS charge made it till about like £1,800. So first of all, there's different ways you can apply for this marriage visa. You could apply like I could apply on my own, like I was applying for it, but because my job now at this time was fully self-employed with social media, it would have been a very hard application for me to get all of the proof and evidence that they were requiring. So the way we did it was Patty technically sponsored me on this marriage visa. So to do that, you have to make the husband or your partner, whatever, has to make a certain amount, a yearly income, a certain amount. It's not like he pays anything for me, but because at the time I was newly self-employed and newly in a new country, I couldn't be on our mortgage. So Patty was on the mortgage on his own, and then my money paid for everything else that we were doing. So his money went to the bills and my money went to, like, you know, traveling, groceries, all of it, etc. So my name wasn't on any of the bills yet, or the mortgage. Because we couldn't put my name on the mortgage yet because I didn't have enough years in taxes for being self-employed, he put me on as many bills as he could. So electricity, the water, just any bill he could to show proof that it was, you know, being addressed to both of us as a married couple. Show as much proof as you can as a married couple, because I know people have been denied, even though they have a marriage certificate, people have been denied. So luckily we weren't, but sorry, let me go back to him sponsoring me. So he makes a certain amount where he can technically sponsor me, and I literally just had to sign a couple of things, but it was all him showing proof. So if you're applying on your own, you're gonna have to get all of the required documents that they're asking for. And being self-employed, it was very hard for me to even get some of those. So instead, Patty sponsors me to stay in the country, even though he doesn't pay anything extra. It's literally the same thing, only he makes a certain amount to be able to sponsor me. Hopefully that makes sense. It will make more sense if you're actually in this situation. If not, then maybe it won't, but I promise it all makes sense. We sent off our application, and I think they said it could take up to 8 weeks. And I remember we felt like really nervous because we really wanted to start trying for a baby once we were approved, because there would be no sense trying before, because I could technically be deported if we were denied, or, you know, be moved to countries, and it would have just been a little bit messier. So we wanted to stay smart about that and make sure we had, you know, a visa to stay in the country before any babies were involved. So I think we got it in like 3 or 4 weeks, just like the little marriage visa card, everything was accepted, I was approved, we're good to go. So that's a 2-year visa. Now fast forward 2 more years, this past September 21st, I have now been here for 4 years. Sorry about that, Patty's aunt just stopped it really quickly to ask me something. So resuming, literally last week just sent off my reapplication for this marriage visa. You can apply for it as many times as you need until you can apply for permanent residency. So because I've only been here for 4 years, obviously I have to reapply for it again, and like maybe even after the 5 years start applying for the permanent residency, because from what I've heard, it's a little bit more of a strenuous process application. I think it's around the same amount as the marriage visa, around that $2,000 mark. So make sure you're saving up. That was another thing why Patty is sponsoring me. This is just coming to you because of the money, because his money comes every month. Like, he's on a salary, where when you're self-employed, it's all like invoiced, so it's very sporadic. And I don't know if that's as approved as like something that's more salary. I think it's just like harder to prove. We obviously had a child in that time frame. Because she's born here, she has the access to a UK passport and an Irish passport. Only people in Northern Ireland can have both passports, so both nationalities, just because they were born here. So she actually has an Irish passport. It's a lot longer to wait for, but it's better to have in case of Brexit. So she has an Irish passport, and so does Patty, but they both can get a UK one really easily. Still have a Canadian passport. I'm just on a marriage visa, and really hoping this reapplication is approved quickly, because we really want to go to Florida for Christmas with our entire family. We're gonna be the only ones here, if it's delayed or anything like that, but it should be fine because it's literally just a reapplication. Let's hope. So that's kind of it for visas. I can't really update you on permanent residency yet because I haven't applied for it. It's pretty straightforward. Again, this is situational. I was a single girl under 30 coming to a country that kind of is connected to Canada in like the big picture, big scheme. My husband also has a job that's very like straightforward when it comes to like documents of what they need for proof of like living and work and bills. We also owned a house during the time. I don't know if that makes a difference. Yeah, now that we bought our second house, I'm on the mortgage for this one because I have enough years of taxes being self-employed. So I was able to, obviously with the reapplication, show a lot more proof of living here. I own my own car, and you know, there's a lot more bills to share for more proof, I guess. So this next part of the video is more just chatting about actually moving countries. As many people think it could be like so exciting, exhilarating, so cool. There's a lot of things that come with moving countries, so many incredible things, and there's a lot of hard things. And I'm sure there's a lot of hard things that happen staying in your own country, but it's obviously not where you were born and raised, so it's always gonna be, you know, trying at times. I'll put a little marker in the description if you're coming to this part of the video and just want to have, you know, a little insight if you're planning on moving, you're interested, you've been thinking about it for a while. My first words of wisdom, I guess, is do it. Like, you got nothing to lose. You might as well try it. Take advantage of that youth mobility travel visa, because you get it until you're 30 and most countries accept it. So take advantage of that, and then you kind of figure out in that 2-year visa time whether or not, yeah, I want to make it work in this country. Maybe you met someone and you both decided, yeah, this is going to be it, we're going to stay here, or you just, you know, find your place as a person more in that place, or you figured out, no, I'm happy where I was from. You know what I mean? So if you never did it, you'll never know. And not that you'll live with regret, but I think you might always just wonder, maybe through seeing other people doing it, or just, you know, having that little spark. I recommend doing it. Save up your money, or take it alone. Maybe I should tell you to do that. Like, save your money. Go try somewhere, a couple of different places, or if you just need to travel, like, traveling is so good. You mature so much. You really find out who you are as a person so much. You are more educated, you're more cultured. Like, travel, highly recommend traveling. And in that time, you either realize that you're meant to keep traveling or live somewhere else in the world, or you're meant to just go back and, you know, excel wherever you're supposed to be. That was my first, you know, little bit of advice. Once you move over though, yes, you might have some money saved for, you know, coming here. I had some money saved whenever I came over to Northern Ireland, so I wasn't like frantically looking for a job, but I also had it in the back of my head that I didn't want to be like super relaxed at, like, you know, because I didn't really have anything to pay for. Like, the cell phone bills over here are extremely cheap. I pay £18 and I have unlimited everything, literally everything. It's insane. You know, it wasn't breaking the bank, but also like living in a country where the pound as a currency is, at the time when I moved over, was double the Canadian currency. So when I went to get like a croissant and coffee and it was like £6 or whatever, I was using my Canadian card, so I wanted to switch it over to Canadian, and it was like $13.50. I was like, are you kidding me, for like the smallest thing ever? So keep that in mind if you're moving to a country that like the currency is, you know, an expensive currency. The pound is quite expensive. Also, what I found out the hard way, because I was looking for a job and I actually got one a lot quicker than I expected as a makeup artist at Urban Decay, and I was so excited. They were so pumped to have me. I was so pumped. It was like 2 months. No, I think I got it like 4 or 5 weeks after even moving here, and it was just like not even full time. I think it was like 4 days a week, and I was so happy with that. But I needed what's it called, basically, like, you know, you have your social security number or whatever, you need that basically to work in a country, and I just assumed like my visa covered all of that. It doesn't. So you actually need to like go pick it up whenever you go to the country, and I didn't know that I had to do that. Oh, what's it called? Patty? I'm gonna like put it up here because Patty's gonna remind me and I can't think of the word. But anyways, they had sent it to the offices here for when I arrived, and you have to pick it up, and it's like the card that like you can start working basically. So I remember that was probably the most stress out of everything we've done in the last 4 years, that moment, because if they didn't have it, if they sent it back or whatever, you're supposed to get it within like 30 days of coming to the country, and it was over 30 days. So Thankfully, they still had it, which was very lucky. Get a job. It's gonna really just help immerse you into like the culture, the people, and just like also a routine, because as much as moving countries is so exciting, your money's gonna run out fast because you're spending it probably a little bit more liberally because you're, you know, trying new things, maybe touring around, eating a lot more food because you want to try more places. So it probably would go a little bit faster than you expect. I was living with one of Patty's friends when I first came over, which worked out really good. So I was paying rent with her, but obviously getting a job helped with, you know, actually making the country you're moving to's currency makes it a lot easier to live there, especially from Canadian to British pound. Oh, like I was so excited to start making the pound. Really immerse yourself in where you are. So the people, the culture, the food, yeah, really like take it in, because as much as like this is like very much, you know, Britain and Canada, it's like, oh yeah, we have so many of the same things. It is so different in so many ways as well. Like coming from Toronto to like where we live now is like a little country village is very different. And I think at first it was very like idyllic and oh, this is so sweet the way you guys live and all this. And then I think being like, oh flip, no, everything closes at 5. I'm used to 24-hour service like down like my street, and like just the accessibility, there's not as many options. There's like little things that like I was like, oh, this is different. This is a little bit different for me. Obviously you get used to it and you adjust and you adapt. That's the whole point of moving. Get involved with your surroundings, adapt to it, or else you're just gonna feel stubborn and annoyed. And I definitely went through a stage of that. So immerse yourself. Also, the reason you would want to get a job is yes, you're gonna have money and an income to pay for things, but it's also gonna give you money to get a car. Get a car, unless you're literally living in the city center and you really don't need one. I don't know, depending on where you're moving, maybe you don't need one, but I know where I moved to, I definitely needed one, which leads me into the hard part on moving over. The first year I moved here, it was like honeymoon season. Like we live literally, well, we lived in Belfast the first year that I lived here, so that's about like an hour from the north coast, but we'd always go to Hollywood or Bangor. Like there's literally oceans everywhere around Ireland because it's an island, you know what I mean? So we literally every weekend would go for a walk, a picnic. Like it was just so like fairy tale and like so new and exhilarating. And I think I was just like in this bubble of, oh my goodness, like this is amazing. I think all my friends and family back home are like, where do you live? It's so beautiful. Oh, I love it. And then, you know, planning a wedding and getting married took up a lot of time and energy. And then coming back from like such a high, you know, so many things happening. It was November when we came back, and you know, there's a time change. It was dark. Yes, Northern Ireland is a rainy country. On a beautiful day, it is the most beautiful place in the world, but you know, it has its gloomy moments, and it was a gloomy month we were coming back to, and it all just hit. Everything hit, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have a car. I was fully self-employed at this time, so I was alone at home when Patty went to work, and now we were living on the north coast, so Patty, you know, had an hour commute there and back. And so it just kind of hit, and I was like, oh flip, this is kind of, I felt sad. I was very sad. I was kind of borderline with depression for that winter. It was very hard. I didn't know how to reach out to anyone. I didn't know how to like talk to anyone back home. I also am a very extremely stubborn and independent person, so I was obviously struggling, and I couldn't vocalize it because I had to like, you know, tell everyone I was okay, show that I was okay, and I really wasn't. I was really struggling. And that's actually when we got Sandy, which really helped because it was like a little buddy to have with me at home. But I remember telling Patty like, yeah, I filmed today. I, you know, did something, and I was in bed with the curtains closed and just was like really miserable because it was like raining and I didn't have a car to go get groceries, or I didn't know my area because I had just been in Belfast, which is more of a city center vibe, and I lived with someone else for that first year, so it was a very different kind of vibe. And then, you know, moving up north where it was a little bit more secluded, and it was just his family nearby. Like there was none of our friends anymore, And when I say our friends, Patty has an amazing group of friends and they really took me in right away. But I will say, which leads me to my next point and what got me through that season of depression and real sadness, was opening up to Patty and just saying like, look, I'm really struggling. And you know, that's when like the hard times of marriage kicks in, where he was so helpful and kind and really just tried to make every day better any way he could. His family was really kind and helpful too once I kind of started to open up a little bit more, but no one really knew. Like, I kept it really to myself because I didn't want anyone to think I was struggling, because I made the choice to move countries. This was my choice, so I didn't want to think I failed or I made a bad decision or anything. And that's just my personality as well. Some people might be different with it. But what changed it, and this is my biggest one, it's literally in caps on my phone: make your own friends. At this stage, I was now 25, turning 26. It's really hard to make friends at this age, especially when you have a job that doesn't, you know, include other people. I work on my own from home. I not only moved from like a very, you know, busy kind of city to like a more isolated town. We finally got a car, which massive difference, because I felt like I had some more independence, so at least I could drive somewhere on my own, and that just really changed the game. We actually went to a really amazing church up on the North Coast, and I think because Patty's family is really, you know, well known up here, and they're incredible and they're quite large, I was kind of put into, oh, like she already has a lot of people, so I felt like maybe I wasn't like followed up on from some people, which goes two ways. Like, I could have gone out of my way too, but because I was in a state that was, you know, hard for me to reach out, I didn't. So I didn't try harder with some people. But then there was one girl who really wanted me to do her hair and makeup for their wedding that summer. And she came over and we really got, you know, chatting or whatever. And then we're like, oh, we should go grab a coffee. And that day, or that, you know, little coffee date, turned into a full day of talking, going to different coffee shops, getting lunch and then dinner. And she became, I feel like I get emotional over this. I don't know, I'm getting emotional. It's like all the feelings are coming back. She became my first like friend, like the first person that I felt like I had made on my own without Patty or, you know, his amazing friends and his family, but those were his, you know, his people that like obviously took me in, but I left all of my people, and I didn't have anyone that like knew me like as me for the past 24 years before moving over. You like leave that when you move a country, right? So Jess, you know who you are. That was so special to me that I found her. Oh my gosh, I'm so emotional. Flip. If you're moving countries for school reasons, you know, that might be an easier way to make friends, or extracurricular activities. Go to groups in your job. Make the effort, put in the time, because it makes all the difference. They get to know you from the start, and all of you, rather than like being introduced as like the new Canadian girl, Patty's girlfriend, fiance, wife. They're like, I don't know how to explain it, but you know what I mean. Like, they're just completely someone who isn't associated with anything else, and it's very hard to make new friends once you get older, because, you know, everyone has their people, and people have their lives already. So I think we were just both thankful for each other, and we remained very close friends since. And through that, I've met other people, and then also like getting pregnant and going to groups, I've met some other friends like Sarah, and then even from that, another girl, Christina, who's from America, who moved up. So like, it kind of was like a ripple effect, but like from that moment of meeting Jess, I remember that day like perfectly, like going to Bothy and then going into Lost and Found. Like, we went to every coffee shop and just completely hit it off. I did do her hair and makeup for her wedding. And I remember I was 8 weeks pregnant and so sick with Olive, and she just knew. She knew right away. She's like, you're pregnant, aren't you? Because I didn't take coffee or something. She changed the game for me, because it can be hard, guys, and it's okay in that time. Reach out to people, and it's so hard to say that. You might think, oh no, I'm totally fine, I'm not struggling, this is easy, like I was meant to be here. And I felt exactly like that. I really did feel like, no, this is where I'm supposed to be. Why do I feel upset? Why do I feel sad? But it was just like these emotions coming over me and telling me like, ooh, did you make the right decision? Oh, you don't really have any friends over here. You know, all these things were like coming up. I don't have my family. I don't have, you know, my people. And it was kind of just like these negative thoughts taking over me. You have to choose to make that different. And it is so hard. It's a hard pill to swallow when you have to like get out of that funk and make a change. And I'm so glad that I met her, and it was through that church, met her and connected, and we've stayed friends since, and she's just the loveliest person ever. Also, let people know back home how you're really doing. I kind of just like let people think everything was totally okay. I was fine, I wasn't struggling, and I just wanted them to know, like, think I was totally fine, and that's just a flaw of mine that I have. Any other Enneagram 3s out there? Yeah, keep up with people back home, because everything's the same back home. I go back like 2-3 times a year, and it's just the same, and it's all about communication, just like in a marriage. It's the same with family and friends. Keep in contact. I think, you know, to keep it regular for my parents, like I don't call them every day. It's like once a week, and they see Olive and everything, which is also incredible when it comes to social media. Like, I am so happy for that, because it kind of keeps like people over in Canada that are in my life like in the loop with me. If I, you know, haven't texted someone or haven't called someone, like they know I'm okay as well. Like I know my parents just like love keeping up with like all of that way as well. And obviously I send lots of pictures and videos, but stay in contact with people. Like they still have their lives going on as well too. It's not like, you know, just because you move countries, like everything has changed. Like you still need to make the effort as a friend, as a daughter, a sister, make the effort for all those people back home. So yeah, this video is a lot longer than I expected, and I'm gonna be so mad at myself if I miss something out, because I wrote it all down, but I'll try and like put it up here if I forgot something. Or, you know, feel free to ask me in the comments or message me on Instagram. I'd love to chat about it, but the amount of people that asked me how it was moving countries or anything, and ultimately it was the best decision I ever did. Like moving countries and getting married and having a kid is never going to be easy, because you naturally have one family that doesn't get to see your child as much, or you as much. But it's just, there's nowhere else I'd want to be or raise my child with Patrick. Like, we absolutely love it here, and yes, it's gonna have its struggles, but we have an incredible support system. I think that's another thing. It's not like Patty and I both moved to a new country. At least we have his people here, and that makes all the difference. We live so close to his family, and we're super close with his family, and it's honestly so incredibly helpful. I don't think I'd be able to have a child without them. So I am so forever thankful and grateful to his entire family and all of his friends too. They've been really kind and just like accepting me as well. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, if I've missed anything, sorry for the voice and that emotion. Oh my goodness, so emotional. Yeah, let me know in the comments down below, or like I said, shoot me a message on Instagram, and I'll try and answer the best that I can. But please remember, this is going to be different for everyone. Everyone's story, journey is going to be so different. I just wanted to share mine to the best of my capability, and I can always refer this video in the future if you're new to my channel or just want to know a little bit about the past 4 years. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.